You're listening to Wildlife Control Consultant, where we provide research-based information on all things related to vertebrate pest management. Hi everyone, Stephen Vantassel here, Wildlife Control Consultant, bringing you another podcast of the Wildlife Control Consultant podcast. Where we cover all things technical related to vertebrate pest control. Well, hey, glad to have you on board. I hope your week went well. If you're following me on the other type of site, you'll know that I am trying to get a bunch of trainings together so I can get some time down the road, because you have to kind of make hay while the sun shines, as they say, because I'll have some other obligations coming up in the month of December. So I'm trying to get ahead of myself here so that I make sure I have enough podcasts available out to the future. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, perhaps you'd like to even be on the show, definitely reach out to me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. We're always interested in getting thoughts about the show, including, yes, even criticisms. But we're also looking for ideas for what you're interested in that we should cover. And just remember, we deal with things from a technical research-based perspective on our program. But we love having guests. We think there's a lot of information out there and tools and products and supplies that more people would benefit from knowing about. So we'd love to hear from you. Do take a moment, if you would, just to listen to the podcast that I did on how to be on the show. It should be very easy to find. Just do a quick search on being a guest on the show. All right. Well, there's my website, of course. You can see some of the training materials that we have available in my opportunities to hire me for training, or if you want me for ghostwriting or perhaps doing some research for you. Perhaps there's something you need me to look up. I have access to different types of literature that isn't always available to the general public. So definitely love to hear from that. Or if you need me to just tidy up your PowerPoint for a training event you're looking to do, definitely reach out to me again at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. All right, well, what did I want to deal with this week? Let me get my PowerPoint up. And this is something that I've been kind of excited about. I mean, as much as I do get excited about things, is the idea of these repeating rodent traps that are being developed. Now, I have dealt with one in previous podcasts that was produced out of New Zealand, and it uses carbon dioxide. But I've recently encountered a new one that I wasn't aware of. It seems to be relatively new, but I am not, I can't say I'm an expert in all things manufacturing related to rodent traps, to be sure. But anyways, the company reached out to me, and I was very grateful for that. And they asked me if I was interested in checking out their trap. And I was like, sure. I mean, if you're ever in vertebrate control, you're always a gadget guy, right? You just love getting gadgets. And so, anyways, let me show you a picture of it. And this is what it is. It's the Thanos Automatic Trap Kit MK-47. Now, I don't know what the MK stands for, and I don't know what the 47 stands for. Maybe that's their 47th iteration. I have no idea. Anyways, there it is. It is a repeating rodent trap that uses a captive bolt to strike the rodent in the skull when they stick their head up into that vertical part. And I'll show you some different pictures of this particular product, but the beauty of it is that it's battery operated, so you don't have to buy any type of additional material to make it run. You charge up the battery, which I assume is a lithium battery. I think that it is. Try to go off my memory here. And charge it up. Put your bait in the cap here at the top. Place it in the location where you're having rodents. Now, my belief is, my understanding, or at least the way I think it's designed, is that it's designed for rats. And because I think it is a little bit too tall for mice to stand up to get within range, because they have to get up high enough to trigger the plunger, okay? And it doesn't use a rod to trigger it. So it seems that it relies on some, maybe a light or some sort of motion. So when the rodent stands up, then the striker bar comes across. It hits, holds for a second or two, and then releases. So if you get your finger up there, it's gonna hurt like the dickens, if not break it, because I'm sure this is going to whack them pretty hard. And it's also not completely flat. It has ridges on it, probably to help hold the rodent in place and also to make sure that that skull gets properly crushed. Okay, so it's not a toy. It's not something you want to be playing with if you're in an area where there are children who just don't leave stuff alone and they're sticking their hands up underneath. And that's why I really love these pointed, where the plastic has been cut into sharp points. The idea being is that if you put your hand underneath there and then reach up, you're more likely to hit those spines there, or the sharp pointed plastic, and then therefore not want to pursue putting your hand up even farther. So it's kind of a way for them to help make it less likely for humans or maybe larger animals trying to get underneath there and put body parts up into there where it doesn't belong, right? And so that's kind of a clever little engineering design thing there. So anyways, this is how it comes in the box, right? It's a box it's not very large. Oh, so there's a picture of the box. And so what is that? Maybe 10 inches long and probably 5 inches wide is the box. And so it's pretty self-contained. And those are the parts. Notice you have a charging cord. You will need to have the plug-in side, so you need to have that doesn't come with it, just the cord that you would have to plug into the cap that goes into your outlet. That doesn't come with it, so you need one of those. And otherwise, it is relatively clean. You have to put it together. When like a typical male, we don't always read the directions, right? And so I was kind of trying to figure it out initially, and I had a little bit of trouble. I'm not the handiest person in the world, but I was able to get it put together in pretty short order. So kudos to that. I would have liked a little bit more on the instruction side of things, particularly on the use, a little bit more details. So the instructions on the total product are thinner than I would like. I like a little bit more detail, but it's probably going to be good enough for people that aren't going to be as geeky as I am about this stuff, right? So there it goes. Just to show you, they have pictures on the product to show you how it works. Let me kind of hold that up there for you. And so that kind of shows you how it works. Let me get that a little closer to make sure you can see that. Okay. And that's how that works there. It shows the rodent getting up there. And again, I believe it's designed for rats. Now, I don't have rats in my area. So just to repeat, battery operated, which is really cool. So there's no CO2 cartridges, which is awesome, right? That's just one thing less that you have to have around. And it's remarkably inexpensive. It's about $100 from what I understand from them, about $100. Now, I got mine at no charge, just to be clear. They were kind enough to send it to me. And then what I did is I did some field work with it and sent them a report. And that report I've sent to them, I am going to give you elements of that report and a little bit more, because I've learned a little bit more of it, able to think about it a little bit more, as well as I've used it slightly more. My testing was not exhaustive. I would look at it more as a pilot test. So I'm going to give you what I've gleaned from it. Now, as I said before, I don't have rats, so I was using it in a location that had mice. Now, we don't have a lot of house mice here in Montana, and so I was able to find a location that had Peromyscus, which is really what we have, right? Deer mice or white-footed mice, I don't know which species it was. Very difficult to tell the two apart, and so I don't even bother. You have to do all kinds of measurements, and even then can't be 100% sure. Some of the researchers are actually using DNA now to figure out whether it's deer mouse or white-footed mouse, because my area there, that's kind of the end of their overlap. So if I was farther west, it would just be deer mice, according to the smudge map. Okay, so nevertheless, it's going to be Peromyscus, not house mice, just to be clear. So let me give you so the left, you've already seen the photo on the left, gives you a vision of what the side view. Here is the underneath view, and you can see here where we're looking up the column, and this is where the plunger comes out here to the right, off to the left toward the orange, and that's where the rodent gets their head stuck up inside there, and then the plunger strikes them, right? So again, not a toy, not something you want to be playing around with. Make sure especially once you turn it on, and I'd treat it like a gun, right? So even if it's turned off, I wouldn't be putting my fingers up in that area. You're always wondering malfunction, right? Just like you don't trust the safety on your firearm. Be careful, and it should be fairly easy if you're careful that you're going to avoid making that type of mistake. So what were my comments about the product with the limited number of work with it? So I'm going to tell you my praises, my criticisms, and some thoughts, and then I'm going to show you some of my results with it, as well as my recommendation for how to use this trap to capture mice. So, praises. It's effective. I clearly had it. It worked for me. So, that's all I can go on there. Very simple design, and that's not a criticism. That's a praise, because the more complicated something is, the more something can break, right? So it's relatively easy to use. It's not something that requires a lot of fussing around with, right? Extraordinarily inexpensive. I mean, it's $100. Now that may seem like a lot, but when you look at another trap on the market that's a repeating trap that uses a gas pin to fire the captive bolt. I call it a captive bolt. That's up to a $250 type product, and you have to keep buying the cartridges, right? Because you can't go to the local store and get it, because it is a cartridge that's only designed for that particular item. So it's not like something you can get, I'm going to buy the CO2 cartridges for my BB gun. They won't fit. Okay, so that won't work. And I do like, as I've already mentioned before, the jagged legs make it less likely for people or even larger animals to try to get their noses up there or their hands up there. So there's a little built-in safety feature, as well as, to go back to it again, notice this, it has this orange side, so it's fairly well protected all the way around. So you really have to work at getting your fingers up in there. And so that is certainly an appropriate design thing. Now, about the criticisms, I did have some criticisms of it, right? We always can find things to improve on. And I thought the plastic stand, again, the plastic stand is this little part here that the working mechanism sits on top. You actually kind of lock it in, okay? That I found was a little flimsier. I think the plastic should be a little thicker. So in that sense, it kind of had a little bit more flex to it than what I would like, right? Because if I'm hard on equipment, right? And so I'm sure if you're a professional, and you have these, you're going to put them in the back of your truck or put them in boxes, and, you're going to be rough with your equipment. You're going to grab them and put them out there or bring them in. And so you're running the risk of perhaps breaking one of those plastic legs. So in that sense, I thought they should have been a little bit thicker. And I don't think it would require significantly more thickness. Maybe they could even, add some plastic ridges on the inside to make it a little bit more durable. Or perhaps have something made out of metal, would be another option to think about, right? Maybe someone wants to do an aftermarket type thing, right? I think that's a possibility here, to create something aftermarket to make this a little bit more durable. And it's not watertight. So it does seem, if I read the directions properly, that it's water resistant. However, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting it in the location where I thought it would be exposed to direct rain. So would I feel comfortable putting it outside of a house that had maybe a wider eave? Yes, I think it would work in that situation. I wouldn't feel necessarily awesome about it, and I would be concerned about wind direction and that sort of thing. I wouldn't want to have, because sometimes you can have a heavy rainfall with heavy wind, and then the rain's almost going sideways. But you could put this inside of a protective box, or perhaps up against the building and lay plywood over the top of it. That would certainly be a way of protecting it from some of that direct rain. So it does have some water resistance, but it's not waterproof, right? It's not something you want to dunk into the water. And so, that does limit some of its uses. It just adds another step, but I don't think it's a necessarily huge problem with it. I think primarily and ideally, this product is really something that would be used maybe in an outbuilding, or perhaps in someone's basement, or inside of a structure. And I think it had some other uses, of course, outdoors, but I would want you to have sort of a bait station. I'm putting that in quotes for those of you that aren't watching the video. A bait station sort of protecting it from the elements, as a way of putting it more outdoors in direct rain environment. Now, I do have some questions that I don't know the answer to. I don't know how durable the product is, right? Because I've only tested it for for maybe a couple of weeks. So I can't say, how long does the battery last? How many strikes will it have? When does the battery, because batteries wear out even if they're not being used. There is a light on the device, so it's obviously draining a little bit. So it tells you kind of when something is fully charged and like when it's on. And so that is something that I don't know the answer to, right? So it is significantly cheaper than competing product that I know of. But how many years of value will you get out of it? I don't know, right? Longevity, right? How many years will it last? Again, I don't know the answer to that question either. And so that is something that you want to think about. How long would the device need to work for you to feel you got your value out of it? Don't know. Of course, a benefit of the product is there's no rodenticides, right? And that's the kind of move as we have more states and individuals. Sometimes it's not even state-driven. Of course, California had some major restrictions on rodenticides. And as California goes, so goes the nation, right? So that is something that we need to be thinking about as professionals in terms of if you're looking at rodent control, particularly in the area of rats. That you're going to have to be thinking of other tools that would allow you to control rats over a long period of time without rodenticides. And so this is certainly a tool that could be used in places where rodenticides either aren't wanted by the client or they're perhaps illegal to use by the label, right? So something to think about there. Now, what was my modification for making it for mice? Again, we don't have rats here in my area in Montana, that at least that I'm aware of. We do have the bushy-tailed wood rat, but I didn't have a site to test it on, so I was only able to test it on mice. And so I got an idea saying I think it's too high off the ground for mice to reach. So what did I do? Well, this is what I did. I took a 2x4. And I know it's not officially 2 inches by 4 inches because of the way shrinkage has occurred. But I took a regular 2x4 and I cut it so it made it into a trapezoid. Okay? A trapezoid like you see in the upper right-hand corner. And I just smeared some peanut butter on that. So by making it into a trapezoid, I just took a circular saw, put it on 45 degrees, and then just cut it. So I just have I think this was only maybe 6 inches, a 6-inch long piece. You want to make sure it's only long enough to fit underneath the stand of the device. And I made it slanted, so I wanted it easy for a mouse just to climb up the side and get onto the top of it. And so that raises it up, a little more than 1.25 inches, looks like 1 inch and 5/16 maybe so thereabouts. And so then I just smeared some peanut butter. The idea is to make the rodent attracted to it, and then when they get up inside there, they're going to smell the odor above them, and then stand up, and then get struck. And so here's what I got. So I was able to, check, and lo and behold, there's one mouse there, if you can see my cursor. Few days, so I removed it. A few days later, I got 2 mice, right? So I was only checking these traps. This was inside of a garage, out near an agricultural field, and so there's plenty of open space out there. It's an unheated structure. And that they did have rodents inside of the building because they could just climb underneath the structure. Didn't have a foundation. It has more like a pole barn, if you're familiar with what a pole barn is. Pole barn with metal siding on it with just a gravel floor. And so there I got 2, right? And then I took some time off and did some bait work, just bait work, meaning I was testing out some baits, and may have a video on that down the road where different type, which bait would be most effective on deer mice, right? Which is the mice we have around here. And then I figured, all right, I wanted to go, because I had rodents still attacking my bait, I took the opportunity to bring the device back out again and just see if we could get some more. And so lo and behold, this is what I had. So these weren't all killed at the same time. So I originally checked after, I believe about a week, and I think about 3 or 4 days. And then I had 1 mouse. That's the one at the top. Then when I checked about a week later, I have a dead mouse here on the right. That's number 2. And then I have a third one down here at the bottom, number 3. Now, which one was second and which one was third, I don't know, but the point is I wanted to see, did the deer mice have any concern over the presence of other carcasses? And with my limited, again, this is a pilot study. I'm not, to really do a full-on proper study, I would need probably a dozen of these things in multiple locations and over a couple of months, right, to do it up right. But this is sort of a pilot study showing that, lo and behold, it did work, and I have some other. So in my limited experience with it, I'm kind of pleased with it. So I'm pretty happy with it. And so I would just throw it out there for those of you that looking to try something new, and maybe you want to check out this particular trap. Again, let me get back to what it is so you can look it up for yourself. This is the Thanos, Thanos automatic trap kit, and it is a battery operated striker bar repeating trap. I don't know how many strikes you get with it. So again, that's another question I don't have the answer to. But I think for $100, it would be interesting to try. Because would it work on squirrels? I don't know. I think it could. I mean, there's not a lot of difference between a rat and a tree squirrel, right? So, but I don't know the answer to that. So if you try it out and you have some experience with it, love to hear from you. You can reach me at wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com, wildlifecontrolconsultant@gmail.com. I have my cat here yelling at me, so I think he wants to be scratched. But nevertheless, I hope that's something that you found useful. And, if you have a better way of having the mice get closer to that plunger area, that striker bar, I'd love to hear from you as well. But I found success with the 2x4, and it's something that worked for me. And so that's it for this week. The MK-47 from Thanos. And I'm Stephen Vantassel. You've been listening to Wildlife Control Consultant Podcast, where we cover all things related to vertebrate pest control from a research-based perspective. So love to hear from you. There's my email address, and do take a few moments, if you would, to subscribe to the channel and tell us what you think and share it with friends. All right, well, that's it for this week. Take care, everybody. This is the disclaimer for Wildlife Control Consultant Podcast. Vertebrate pest control is an inherently dangerous activity involving risk of bodily injury to you, others, and/or property. Vertebrate pest control also involves legal issues, so be sure to always follow national, state, provincial, and local laws when using pesticides and/or other control methods when controlling pests. Wildlife Control Consultant LLC, Stephen M. Vantassel, or their affiliates are not responsible for your use of the information provided here. Always consult a qualified and appropriate professional before employing the information provided here.